Winston Churchill said, if you are going through hell, keep going. What this means? First of all, it means if no one believes in you, still keep going. It could be like a hell, but it may change your life. The quote also means always following your direction, regardless of challenges. If you found the direction of your life, but it seems difficult, it seems like a hell, keep going if it's your direction. Keep going if it's your purpose. If you found yourself in disappointment, illusions, like crushed illusions, etc., when your illusions collapse, like Martin Eden's illusions that we will explore in this video, it's like a hell, but you keep going. Follow Churchill's advice. That's a reliable advice. That delving deeper into Martin Eden's case, Jack London's protagonist, what happened? He wanted to become a famous writer, and he achieved it. But in the beginning, he truly hated the hell of being poor, the hell of poverty, the hell of starving. He really wanted to change his life through career as a writer. And also, he wanted to change the hell of poverty with finding like having a purpose of upper class society, trying to be part of an upper class society, not only for overall his life goals, to improve his life conditions, but also to impress Ruth Morse. It was really like a hell, his initial struggles, his existential struggles. He many times, countless times, editors rejected his writings. And it seemed like he couldn't become a writer, but he really had the skill. It was like a hell to realize that he didn't have a formal education in front of Ruth Morse, who had a bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Arts in the 19th century, early of 20th century, which was something unique in those times. Although Ruth didn't have the critical and aesthetic mind that Martin had. And then he continues this struggle is about being against the hell of your existential conditions. And he really succeeds. He breaks the barrier. He breaks the barrier of his constrained life, reaching success, reaching fame, becoming a famous writer. But then what happens is astonishing in a negative sense. He have overcome, not lost, because bad things are not losses, but they are like deliberations. If the new experience doesn't chain you, doesn't imprison you, of course. So he have overcome the hell of poverty and appeared in the hell of wealth. It may seem paradoxical. How can wealth, financial well-being, and upper class, being part of upper class society, being a famous writer, how could it be like a hell? But objectively, and as you can see in the work, in the novel, he really is to be like a victim in the hell of wealth. But on the other hand, he is a self-victim. He should have overcome, he should not have built illusions around Ruth Morse and upper class society. But on the other hand, after the collapse of his illusions, after the ontological collapse of his illusions, he should have collected the broken pieces of his dignity, the broken pieces of his dreams, and rebuilt a new kind of life. And he should have kept going through the hell of disappointment, following Churchill's advice. Although in those years that Martin Eden wrote the novel, probably the quote hasn't been said yet by Churchill. So the quote, if you are going through hell, keep going, is a universal thing and can be contextualized in different literary works, including this one, Martin Eden. And returning back to his context, why was wealth and financial well-being, fame, what it all was like a hell to him? No lesser hell than the poverty itself, because it was the collapse of his illusions, because it was the crash, the broken pieces of his ideals that he brought with incredible patience, incredible resilience, and consistency. Who was Ruth Morse? Ruth Morse didn't experience life as a hell, because first of all, she was a surface level person and didn't delve deeper into the nature of things, as philosophical and intellectual as Martin was. So life was simpler to her, especially given her economic background, socioeconomic background, and Ruth Morse's, her financial well-being was a great um, it was a great fundament, great basis for her well-being, for her uh, overall psychological stability. But in the case of Martin Eden, he was highly artistic in nature. Martin was seeing, for example, looking at an ocean, he wouldn't see just an ocean, but the vastness of the human soul, the vastness of human dreams, human consciousness. It He could find the whole universe within a few words. He could find the whole universe within simple things because he was a writer. As he said, he wanted to write, to understand how the world, how the world sees, hears, and feels. He wanted to experience it all within himself through his writing. And paradoxically, as I've already mentioned, between these two hells, the hell of poverty and the hell of wealth, he couldn't find the third option, not a paradise, but at least a normal state to live. As mentioned in the novel, when he gets far from his current reality, becoming famous, always being interviewed, being invited for dinners, while he already didn't need a dinner. He could buy himself a meal for himself a meal, while he didn't have a chance in his poor days, and no one invited him. Another paradox, another irony, existential irony of life. And the author, Jack London, mentions he had lost the old paradise, the old heaven, and couldn't find the new one. In those days of fame and recognition and financial well-being, he seems to have lost not the poverty. His earlier years aren't depicted as to be hell, but as heaven. It was hell when he was living in those spheres, in those times. But looking it from the distance, looking it from the distance of years, it all already seemed not hell, but heaven instead. So he lost both. Um, Poverty was like a hell to him, wealth as well. And honestly, we should give another conclusion here. Maybe a psychological one. Well, I am not a psychologist, but literary studies requires a psychological evaluation, psychological analysis, like psychopoetics requires we to see the psychological nature of characters. And Martin Eden wasn't type of socially not acceptable, but he should have been stronger. The problem is within himself, I think, because in literature there are many other characters. For example, the Count Monte Cristo, who overcomes incredible challenges and even takes revenge, although this is a question for another discussion, whether taking revenge or not. But his response was mistaken. His response to existential challenges was wrong. And instead of being under the collapse of his illusions, he should have built a new reality. Winston Churchill's quote in this context, I think, could be a medicine for Martin if he had accepted, if he accepted that prescription. For example, if you are going through hell, keep going. It would mean the following. After finding out all the existential emptiness of Ruth Moore's and all the existential emptiness, ontological emptiness, vanity of upper class society, he should have just tried to rebuild his ideals on a realistic level, not building new ideals, but trying to continue his life and not focusing on disappointment and collapsed illusions. The ability of rebuilding again and again. This would be like another hell to him, of course, a very difficult period, very difficult stage of life. But if he was able to overcome it, it would be following Churchill's advice, going through hell, keep going. That would be truly an existential medicine for him. But anyway, what's done is done. And Martin Eden's death in literature is described not only as literal death, but also as metaphorical death. It was like, we should not perceive this only as a literal death, but his inability to take part in society, his inability to cope with, to coexist with his collapsed illusions. This is all about that, and it's of course a big deal, and he should have been much stronger in overcoming that. And Jack London tried to express what happens when you become imprisoned by your illusions, when you become blind to the nature of reality, when you cannot see whatever reality is, or if you have succeeded in that, for example, you've overcome your illusions and it's quite disappointing, then keep going. This Churchillian keep going is really important, and could stop Martin's death and turn it into a new Renaissance-like renovation. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen in the novel. But it can happen in real life, in real human context, if you could follow the existential medicine words as mentioned. To sum up, anyone is one in their lives have sometimes at some point in life experienced the kind of disappointment, kind of collapses of illusions, or any other challenge. Challenges are different, but their impact is the same: limiting life, limiting progress, or making the progress less meaningful. If you are in a complete existential collapse in your ontological searches, in your ontological perceptions. But what's important is, even if life seems like a hell at some point, some activities, etc., but you find it meaningful, you find it as part of your destiny, as part of your direction of life, you should absolutely do that. Keep going, and that will take you a better place and will make this world a better place for you. You may share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, you may subscribe to follow the future reflections regarding other literary characters, quotes from the books, philosophical explorations, and something in between. Thank you for watching.